Hello, and welcome to Sacred Ground Community Church and Sangha. This is our Bible study, mindful Bible study, Fresh Green Blessings, reading the Judeo-Christian Bible through a Buddhist lens with Mother Earth eyes. And I am Parson Michael, and we are studying, reflecting upon, musing about, praying towards the Gospel of Mark and the Psalms. And this week we have Psalm 130 and Mark's Gospel, chapter 8. And I am going to take a second here and try and make sure that I can see us on YouTube as well, so that I can just check in case there's any comments. Folks are welcome to make comments. Yeah, I want to make sure the volume's down. Otherwise, we're going to have this overlapping voices. There we go. So let me just take a minute to find this. So while I'm doing this, I can tell you a little bit about us. We have been around since 2009 for forms. And yep, there we go. I will try to be aware if you make a comment, although I'm going to say I might miss it. It's possible that Miss Ollie will catch it if I miss it. She should be checking us out as well. So you're welcome to share in the chats and that sort of thing. Here we go. Almost every time. It's this little challenge for me. It was just kind of getting things rolling and getting things started. So today, I'm afraid, is no exception. And there's this weird thing. Like, the more prepared I think I am, the less prepared I actually am. So I thought I was really prepared today. So then, of course, I ran into all these hassles. Also, Zoom seems to be down. So that's adding to the mystery of everything this morning, or I'm sorry, this afternoon. But enough about all that. Let's get into Fresh Green Blessings. And the way we begin this is with a little bit of mindfulness, a little bit of meditation. And I don't know, but I'm guessing that some people are like, oh, this sounds interesting, mindful Bible study. They tune in and they see like, oh my gosh, 7 minutes of meditation. And then they click off before we ever mention a verse of the Bible. If if you're that person, you can click off now, right? You don't need to wait. But seriously, we need time to get ourselves centered, to get to a place of presence, to be here. That energy that we bring to any situation is crucial. If you're having a difficult conversation with a loved one, or a fun conversation with a loved one, if you are dealing with strains or stresses of work, physical issues, sicknesses, health issues, anytime we can bring mindfulness or presence to that, it will, I promise you, be different than if we approach it without presence, if we just kind of rush in. So I have no interest in just saying, okay, let's open the Bible page. No, I want to create that presence for myself. And as I always say, everything's an invite here. It's invitational. So whether you take the invitation or you just want to sit back and kind of observe this and see what's going on, it's all fine. But I want to, for myself, and I want to invite you, if it's appropriate for you, to move yourself, your mind, your body, your spirit into a little different space before we start to engage the sacred text. Because when we do that, we will relate differently. So with that, I'm going to invite the bell to sound. I just hear a plane flying overhead. You might hear a train going by. Those are some of the little extras you get here uh, when you have sacred ground coming from the folk house, our home. So I want to invite you to enjoy this bell in this moment. And you can, if you hear the playing, you can enjoy that as well. And the ideal here is to be here. It's such a simple thing, in some ways, such a weird thing. I don't know how old I was before someone said, "Hey, let's try and be right here, right now, not carried away by our thoughts about what's going to happen in an hour, what's going to happen next Thursday, what's going to happen this coming Easter week, and not carried away by worries, not carried away by what happened last week or yesterday morning, but just being here and in this moment enjoying the bell." I'm not quite sure how long those reverberations last. I'm hearing it the whole time. Maybe I'll hold it closer to the mic, maybe you'll hear it a little longer. Once more, the bell. And now my invite to you is going to be an invite to meditation. I think I was in my early 20s when I first heard about meditation in a class at college, Youngstown State University. And one of the things that I have found that I slipped into, I've seen many people slip into, is the idea that meditation is this very, very serious business. It can be, but meditation is life. Meditation is an invitation to be completely alive in this moment. And you might say, but people are usually so still. And there's walking meditation and movement meditation. We can even consider yoga as a form of meditation. But yeah, it is often still and will be fairly still. But in that stillness, we're invited to just kind of, what would I say, be a window to the world around you. Be a window to what's happening within your own body. In other words, see through clearly. Hmm. You might want to close your eyes. You might want to go with a downward facing gaze. And I invite you now to be aware of your breath as you breathe in. And I suggest through your nose. And as you breathe out, in and out. I invite you to put one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly. Breathing in and out. In and out. You might notice the abdomen moving up and down. You might notice the chest expanding in and out. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Breathing in with a smile. Breathing out, relax. Smile. Relax. I'm going to put your hands down, your palms up, or palms down on your lap there. And as we're getting a little more connected to our body, start to notice now, oh, there's some real tension. I'll just share. I feel some tension in my upper back, a little bit in my jaw today. And I invite you to bring awareness and envision yourself bringing the breath to that place of tension. Breathing in with awareness and breathing out, begin to release. Aware, release. It's okay if the tension is still there. Maybe you could just loosen that grip a little. Aware. Maybe it's in the hips, maybe it's in the calves. Aware. Breathing in, release. Breathing out. Aware. Smile. Release. Smile. Maybe a little awareness of your posture, your spine. Aware. Smile. Release. Smile. Aware. Present. Release. Relax. Present. Relax. Here. Smile. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm online, folks. Here. Release. Here. Smile. Here. Now. We're a little more than 10 minutes into our program, and I'm in a different spot. My reading of the sacred text, my engagement with it will be somewhat different because of that meditation. But I begin today with a reading of Psalm 130. And if you've been tuning in past weeks, and I will tell you, you're also welcome to check out past weeks. We have them all posted up under the live section under the Sacred Ground YouTube site, and you can check out the previous sessions if you'd like. But right now we're looking at Psalm 130, and I'm going to read this as I typically do, two different versions, the New Revised Standard Version, and then after that I will read the older King James Version. And again, to try to put myself in as much presence as possible, I'm going to invite the bell to sound, and I invite you to simply enjoy listening to the words. You don't need to take notes. You don't need to think too hard about it. You might like some of what you hear. You might not. Just sit back and soak it in. And know, I guess this is an invite that I'll put with that. I'll lace through that. Is knowing that you're listening to this poetic, prayerful utterance that is literally thousands of years old, and that has probably been shared by many, many of your ancestors. Psalm 130, 130, New Revised Standard Version. Waiting for divine redemption. A song of ascents. Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice. Let your ears be attentive to the voice of my supplications. If you, O Lord, should mark iniquities, Lord, who could stand? But there is forgiveness with you, so that you may be revered. I wait for the Lord, my soul waits. And in his word, my soul waits for the Lord more than those who watch for the morning. More than those who watch for the morning. O Israel, hope in the Lord. For with the Lord there is steadfast love, and with him is great power to redeem. It is he who redeems Israel from all its iniquities. And again, Psalm 130. One of Martin Luther's favorite psalms, a very popular psalm over centuries. Out of the depths have I cried unto thee, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice. Let thine ears be attentive to the voice of my supplications. If thou, Lord, shouldest mark iniquity, O Lord, who shall stand? But there is forgiveness with thee, that thou mayest be feared. I wait for the Lord, my soul doth wait, and in his word do I hope. My soul waiteth for the Lord more than they that watch for the morning. I say, more than they that watch for the morning. Let Israel hope in the Lord. For with the Lord there is mercy, and with him is plenteous redemption. And he shall redeem Israel from all his iniquities. I want to point out a couple of things in this writing, in this song. One is, this is called a petitioning psalm, asking God for help. Asking, the psalmist is saying, I've done wrong. I'm asking for forgiveness. There's a few things that might catch our ears here. It says here in King James, but there is forgiveness with thee that thou mayest be feared. And I've talked about this in previous sessions. In the old language, we have this word fear, but a better translation would be awe, AWE. And so we have it in the New Revised Standard, so it may be revered, so that, we hear this word fear the Lord. Well, revere is such a different meaning for us, right? So I wanted to point that out. The other thing is, and just because it might be a little bit difficult to get this with the language of it, he says, the psalmist, if you, O Lord, should mark iniquities, Lord, who could stand? If thou, Lord, shouldest mark iniquities, O Lord, who shall stand? And the meaning of that is, if you were to count all of our wrongdoings, who of us can stand unaccused? We are all guilty of wrong. And so we sometimes think in terms of, particularly the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, as this very harsh God, and plenty of evidence for that. But we also have this emphasis in this psalm in particular on this forgiving God, despite our repeated offenses. If who could stand if it wasn't for this forgiving great sacredness? Because we are all in need of forgiveness. Um, there's just a couple things that I wanted to point out to make that a little more clear for us. And the other thing that I found really interesting in here is he um, speaks of the watchman waiting for morning. My soul waiteth for the Lord more than they that watch for the morning. And this is repeated. I say, more than they that watch for the morning. The watchmen who are on duty at night, there is absolutely no doubt in their minds that morning is coming. No matter how dark the darkness may seem or be, morning will come. The implication here being, of course, no matter how dark things may be right now, that forgiveness, that mercy, that steadfast love is always ultimately available. So, I mean, I think we could see in terms of that some of the reasons why this has been such a popular song. I am going to do a little Lectio Divina, which is a practice started, I believe, in Roman Catholic tradition, which is kind of a sacred reading, picking out words, allowing for kind of an extemporaneous flow of words and thoughts and prayer, and engaging the text as sacred, engaging the text as poetry, and engaging the text as almost a platform for communication with the divine. That we can, there's veils between us and this world of the sacred. Sometimes we feel it. Sometimes we feel it when we're out in nature. We might feel it when we're with a loved one or in the presence of a great tree or an animal or a child. We may sometimes feel it in the presence of, and it's all sort of hazy, at least for me. How do we reach through? How do we reach in? And this is where I think our logical, empirical, scientific worldviews, while all so vital and important in life, here's where they are a little less weighty. Here's where the poetic, the artistic, the intuitive, spiritual hold value. So I'll take a sip of tea and then I'll see what happens when I attempt a little Lectio Divina Psalm 1. Thank you for being with us. I hope you find value in this. We do this melding of Buddhist-Christian mother traditions. Um, I've mentioned before, I love the Bible. I love the idea of engaging this sacred text. I've mentioned in previous weeks wrestling with it, dancing with it, and I'm so glad that we get to do this in some way over this crazy technology, that we somehow get to do it a bit together. And I don't know if I've been clear enough with this some weeks. I invite your reflections in as well. So if you would like to share in the chat, if you would like to say something that kind of goes along with what I say, or something that is a different strand, some touching on some tangent that I'm not, or something contradicting what I said. Hey, you said this, Michael, but I think that. That is invited. So if you're watching this live and you feel like engaging in that way, we welcome. And it's always neat to hear. Um, we have people in different parts of the country, different parts of the world who've checked out our programming and our Fresh Green Blessings, our Mindful Bible Study. So please feel free to check in, share, and it's not just for my benefit because then other people get to see that as well. So, and it's not about profundity and saying something wise. It's just we're just human beings. We're just people, and we're just trying to engage in a way that we might call worthy or sacred or beneficial. You pick a word that's right for you. Those are some words that are correct for me. So I will do a little Lectio Divina, and then if there are some chats, I will look here on the. I'm looking. I'm going through my studio page. I'll look at the YouTube page and see if there's some comments there. The bell, of course, will help. We're in such a high-speed world, and I know this is kind of a slow program. That's on purpose. We need the slowness. Out of the depths, out of the deep places, I cry unto thee, O Lord. Hear my voice, my supplications. Forgiveness. Forgiveness is with thee. I wait. My soul waits. More than the watchman waiting for the sun. We wait. Forgiveness is available. We can attempt to offer our reverence, our awe. It says here not what one is asking forgiveness for. Is it a great crime? Is it a small thing? We are mostly committing small wrongs. So often I commit the small wrong repeatedly. Small harms. Small harms. But what happens when small harms, small kindnesses, small hurts, they add up. The watchman in the tower is waiting for the sun to rise. Waiting for the darkness to end. Waiting for new light, new day, warmth, heat, possibility. Waiting. And trusting. In the times when there is great darkness, it is possible for us to forget. To forget it will not always be like that. Forgiveness. What do I hold in my muscles? What do I hold in my heart? What do I hold in my mind? Not forgiving myself, not forgiving others, maybe not forgiving God. Forgiveness. And Jesus will tell them, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And Jesus will teach a prayer where we are to be children of God, mirrors of God, asking, saying, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. As we forgive, may we be forgiven. Judge not that ye be not judged. And here we hear in the psalm, turning to you, great sacred, crying from depths, from darkness, from fear, from self-loathing, maybe from the loathing and hatred of others. We hold tight sometimes. We hang on tight and call for retribution. Help us to know forgiveness of ourselves, of our friends, of our so-called enemies, of the great sacred, of what appear to be the random things. And please help us to see the forgiveness that is this world with the new dawn, when the new dawn arises. Peace and amen. Throughout that whole prayer, you may have heard it was our cat up there eating. And I was just thinking of that grasping and greed and avarice, and how that relates to this topic of forgiveness and letting go. I am going to do what we often do, a bit of mindful movement before we move on to the Gospel of Mark. And as I mentioned before, both Ollie and I are trained certified yoga instructors. One of the benefits of that very difficult time of COVID, and we lost some loved ones in that time, but we're also always looking to we're also always looking to what are the unintended beneficial consequences? One is that we're here because COVID led us to finally start getting things online. Another is that we had a bit of time, so we said, okay, let's pursue this with the yoga and become yoga instructors, and so we did. So I'm going to do a few little yoga movements here, and I do that and invite you, if you'd like, to take part. I'm going to actually lay down on the floor. I'm going to move this chair that I'm sitting on. You should be able to see pretty well. And I'm going to just do a few things on my back. So you might want to lay on the floor and do this, or you can chair if you wish. Do some other movements. And why? Why do that in the middle of a Bible study, Michael? I said last week or the week before, I believe wholeheartedly in an embodied theology. We need to not just be in our heads, we need to be in our hearts, we need to be in our bodies. And so with that, we're going to get into our bodies a little bit. So I will move this chair out of the way, and hopefully I'm being loud enough so that you can hear me. I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit to make this a little easier for you all to see, hopefully. And we're just going to do a few little movements. As I said, I'm going to get down on the mat. This is great, by the way. I have this for my knees. I'm going to be on my back today, but if you're ever doing yoga, if you're a little bit older as I am, it's great to have a knee pad. So along with a mat, I would invest in that. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to lie on my back, and I'm going to bring my feet up and just do some little work with my feet, all right, with my legs. And I usually, when I do this, let's see here, I think we're going to be able to see. Usually when I do this, I keep my head facing straight up. I might turn a little bit toward the mic so you can hear today. I invite you to lie on your back and just feel gravity doing its thing. I was talking to a friend of mine. He said, he's a bit younger. I'm in my early 60s. I think he's in his mid 40s. He said, one of the things we stop doing as we get older is we stop getting down on the ground. Get on the ground. Play with the toddlers. Play with little kids. Get down there and play games with them. It helps to keep us sharp. So I invite you to do that. Right now, I'm just lying here and I can feel just my body sinking into the mat, sinking into the earth. And it's a great feeling. It's a great feeling. It's very relaxing. So what I'm going to invite you to do is I'm going to invite you, I don't have my yoga pants on, I have my jeans on today, but that's okay. They're fairly loose. I'm going to invite you to bring your legs up and your knees and just kind of swivel them around. Just a little bit of a swivel around one direction. You should be getting a nice little massage on your lower back there. Again, this shouldn't be painful. You can decide how much, how fast, how slowly, but enjoy that feeling, almost that massage on your lower back that you're receiving with this. And then stop and go back the opposite way. Swirl around, swirl around. This right here is just great. I have some back issues, and I can tell you that you have to be careful because some of the bends will um, add harm. But if you're careful, a lot of the stretching can really be helpful. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the left leg out long, and we're going to lower that. And then the right knee, I invite you to bring that right knee up, up, and then we're going to take the left arm. I'm going to lift up to show you here. Make it like a goalpost arm. Put that left arm down flat and turn your right leg out and then turn towards your right ear. Oh, goodness, I'm getting a nice stretch through my right thigh. I'm getting a nice stretch through my left shoulder and in my neck. And again, don't push it too hard, just a nice little stretch and take some breaths here. Nice deep breaths. And now you could take that leg and you could bring it over to the other side and do the goalpost arm on the right and bring that right leg over, crossing over your left. You can take your left hand and kind of push it down. Don't push hard, but my goodness, I'm getting a great stretch through my uh, right outer thigh, through my hip here. Gosh, it feels good. And a few nice breaths. And let's bring that leg in, a little stretch up towards the chest, and then send that right leg back. And have a left leg up, left leg up. And first, we're going to do the goalpost arm on the right hand side and that left leg bent and going out a little bit. And you can turn on to the right ear. Nice stretch on that inner thigh. Try to keep those shoulders down. Excellent. And take a couple of breaths here. And now we're going to bring that left leg up. We're going to cross it over the right leg. And I'm going to make the left arm the goalpost arm. And now I'm going to turn on my left ear. And you might not go too far. I feel some real tightness here. So I'm not going to push it too hard. Just a little bit of pressure from that right hand on my left knee. Boy, I can feel that in my left side of my buttock, in my left outer thigh, and my left hip. Great, great feeling. And some nice breaths here. All right. Now let's bring those legs up and out and in, up and out and in with the breath. And now let's go the opposite direction. In and out and up, in and out and up, and again with the breath. And we'll bring our feet down, bring our legs down, bring our hands into prayer position, up to the third eye, peace, and amen. Roll over on your side, use your hand to help you lift up. And there we have it. Nice little movement just to kind of keep us going a little bit. And wow, it's, the whole time I've been talking, of course, have I been thinking about my hips? Have I been thinking about my thighs? Have I? Of course not. But there it is. It's all one. And so how can we integrate this? How can we bring it all together? So, yeah, it's lovely. We're going to move on, and I feel a little energized now. We're going to move on now to Mark chapter 8. And I will do the bell. and I will offer the reading beginning with the New Revised Standard Version, and I will be reading Mark chapter 8, verses 27 through 33. And these are usually seen as two distinct entries, especially in the newer forms of the Bible. But I will put these together, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why in a few minutes. And again, let me see if I don't know if I'm missing anything in terms of the chat. Just make sure if anybody has shared. I don't think there's any sharing there. If Miss Ollie's checked in, let me know. And I will invite the bell to sound and then share from Mark chapter 8, beginning with verse 27. And again, thank you for being here. You find value in this. This comes from two sections entitled Peter's Declaration about Jesus, and then Jesus foretells his death and resurrection. And given that we're in Holy Week, I thought this was also an appropriate reading. Jesus went on with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea. And on the way, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And they answered him, "John the Baptist, and others, Elijah, and still others, one of the prophets." He asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answered him, "You are the Messiah." And he sternly ordered them not to tell anyone about him. Then he began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He said all this quite openly. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." And now the Gospel, chapter 8, King James Version. And Jesus went out and his disciples into the towns of Caesarea Philippi. And by the way, he asked his disciples, saying, "Whom do men say that I am?" And they answered, "John the Baptist, but some say Elias, and others one of the prophets." And he saith unto them, "But whom say ye that I am?" And Peter answereth, and saith unto him, Thou art the Christ. And he charged them that they should tell no man. And he began to teach them, The Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected of the elders, the chief priests, and scribes, and be killed. And after 3 days, rise. And he spake that saying openly. And Peter took him and began to rebuke him. But when he had turned about and looked on his disciples, he rebuked Peter, saying, Get thee behind me, Satan, for thou savorest not the things that be of God, but the things that be of men. And finally, we'll have a third reading, which is from the book The Gospels, a new translation by Sarah Ruden. Then Iesus and his students went out to the villages around Caesarea and Philippos. While they were on the road, he questioned his students, saying to them, Who do people say I am? And they answered him, They say that you're the baptizer, and others that you're Elias, and others that you're another one of the prophets. But he asked them, Who do you say I am? Petros answered and said to him, You're the anointed one. And he sternly warned them to tell no one. He began to teach them that it was necessary for the Son of Mankind to endure many things, and to be tested and rejected by the elders and the high priests and the scholars, and to be killed, and to rise to his feet again 3 days. And he was giving this discourse with confident freedom. Then Petros, taking him aside, began to speak sternly to him. But he turned around and looked at his students and castigated Petros, saying, Get behind me, Satanas. It's not the things that belong to God you're thinking of, but the things that belong to human beings. We've heard these three different translations, and now I invite you to just sit in silence with those words that we've just heard for a few moments. Again, if anyone has anything they would like to share in the chat, you're more than welcome to. I mentioned if you look in the New Revised Standard Version, they have little headings. So these are in two different sections. And I suspect that therefore they're not commonly read together. And I submit that that's a shame because we have something kind of amazing, of course, happening here. Something amazing in terms of what's happening with Peter. So Jesus asks, "Who do they say that I am?" And first of all, before we even get into that, let's go with what these disciples say. Well, some are saying that you're John the Baptist. Others are saying that you're Elijah, and others are saying one of the other prophets. How can he be Elijah? How can he be one of the other prophets? One of the things that I hear as a person who studies Buddhism is that people are thinking here in terms of rebirth. They're thinking in terms of people coming back again in other forms, which is just absolutely fascinating and is somehow, despite these words, almost completely ignored within mainline and evangelical Christianity. And then he says, "But who do you say that I am?" And I think I've talked before about the word "but." But is kind of like I try to avoid using it. I slip into it way too often. But when we say "but," it's almost like a strike through line of what was previously said. So Jesus says, "But," strike through line on all that, John the Baptist, Elijah, etc. Who do you say that? And I like what one of the commentators said. That's an ongoing question, isn't it? Who do you say that this Jesus is? Who do I say that Jesus is? I sit in a place where I don't need you to have the same view that I have. I sit in a place where when I was in seminary, I didn't need anyone else to have the same perspective that I did on Jesus. And I sit in a place where my understanding of Jesus in 2025 need not be the same as it was in 2022, let alone in 1975, let alone what it might be in 2035 still here. Our understandings evolve. Who do you say that I am? And Peter answers, depending upon the translation, the Messiah, the Christ, the anointed one. And Bruden's translation really gets down to the brass tacks of it. This word means the anointed one. This is a word for the anointed one is the king. Now, this is before the transfiguration up on the mountain. That's going to happen later in Mark. This is after Jesus is baptized by John the Baptist, but Peter's not there when that happens. So somehow Peter just has this sense, as far as we know, or faith, belief. You're the anointed one. You're the new king, the new David, if you will. And as we could see with the Palm Sunday readings, that idea of the king and savior, in that context, people are thinking politically. Oh, we've been under the yoke of the Romans, we've been under the yoke of all these other groups. Now we're gonna fight back. Here comes the king. Here comes the king of the Jews. We are ready for battle. Couple of things. On the one hand, no one's saying here, you are the only begotten Son of God. We're going to get that message in the Gospel of John. We do not get that message in the Gospel of Mark, or in Matthew, or in Luke. And in the old days, people didn't have four canonical Gospels. There were people following the Gospel of Mark. There were others following the Gospel of Matthew, others following the Gospel of Luke. From what we know, Mark is the oldest. And we're told that he's the anointed one. But immediately, he turns that idea of king on its head. So he's not talking about, I'm the only son of God. He's not saying that at all. He's saying, seems to be saying that Peter has it right, that he's the anointed one. And so we're thinking, if you're the disciple, hey, here comes the king, right? But then he immediately says, by the way, I'm about to undergo great suffering, being rejected by the elders, by the scribes, by the priests, and being killed. It doesn't quite fit. And Peter takes him aside and says, whoa, wait, wait. And then Jesus, after being rebuked by Peter, says, no, not wait, wait, wait. This is the deal. And he makes sure to say that, Jesus does, in front of the other disciples. But turning and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter. And he calls him Satan and then says, you're setting your mind on human things, not on divine things. And this calling of Satan seems harsh, right? But again, I love what one of the commentators says. Most of what's wrong isn't about this super easy to see, call towards evil. It's about having this understanding that doesn't look at the deeper picture. And of course, it's understandable that Peter can't see this deeper picture. We want the story to be different. Peter wants it to be different. We want there to be no suffering. It's interesting, this word suffering, right? So Jesus says, Then he began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering. Let's see how Rudin says it. And he began to teach them that it was necessary for the Son of Mankind to endure many things and to be tested and rejected. In the King James, and he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things. Buddhism. Four Noble Truths. There is suffering. There's a path that leads to suffering. There is non-suffering, and there's a path that leads to non-suffering. Those are the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism. Suffering is real. It need not be the total picture, but it cannot be avoided. Behind me last week, I had this beautiful red flower. I don't have it behind me this week because the flowers died. It's what happens. I have another plant, maybe it'll be out next week. There's a bud, and it looks like the flower is about to open and bloom. And in a few weeks, that flower will die. In the psalm we heard, I'll go back and I'll read the King James version of this verse. Psalm 130, verse 3. If thou, Lord, shouldest mark iniquities, O Lord, who shall stand? In other words, if you were going to count up all the sufferings that are caused by people, O Lord, who would be the one who would stand and say, I have caused no suffering. I've brought no suffering. We have each been causative agents of suffering. And we live in a world where suffering occurs. It's part of the deal. I mentioned this, we weren't online this past week, but I think I mentioned it at our service in the wild this past Sunday. I was connected with Roman Catholic tradition years ago, and it was always good when I could go to that Good Friday service. Because Palm Sunday is not about suffering. It's welcoming the Messiah to Jerusalem. And Easter Sunday is he is risen. But in between, suffering. There's a story, Buddhism, where a woman has lost a child. And she goes to the Buddha and asks for help. What can be done? And he says something like, it may have been a mustard seed. Maybe I'm conflating that with Christian tradition, but bring me a seed from the house that has not known death, that has not known suffering. And then I can restore your son to life. And she goes from house to house. Of course, in every house. People have known death. People have known suffering. And finally, she gets it, and she returns. And now she's ready to take her son for burial, and she becomes a disciple of the Buddha. I speak a lot about eco-theology, spirituality. Mother Nature can be brutal and is brutal. You know, there's that blood and claw, tooth and nail part of nature. There's the life cycle, which is beings eating other beings to survive. There's death and decay, which leads to compost and enriched soil. We are all part of the sacred circle. And this beautiful, incredible, magical soul, within it also is the suffering. Within it also is the need for forgiveness. Within it all is lamentation and betrayal. The St. Peter who's going to betray his teacher 3 times. And then the same man who's gonna be a leader in the continuing of his teacher's teaching. Our simple human logics don't get it. We don't wanna encourage suffering, we don't wanna cause suffering, but it's part of the deal. Thich Nhat Hanh tells a story, a forgiveness story, going back to the song. The late Vietnamese Zen Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh, he did retreats specifically for Vietnam veterans. This is a guy who saw the horrors of what was happening. And he said at one of these retreats, there was a man there who, when his buddy was killed or his buddies were killed in a particular village, he decided he would get retribution. And he made sandwiches with explosives inside. And he set them out. He knew the people were hungry. And he went into hiding, but able to see what was about to happen. Well, not only did people find the sandwiches, it was children who found them. And there was no time for him to rush out and stop them. And these children died horrible deaths. And he caused it. And here it was decades later, and he's at a retreat with a Vietnamese Buddhist monk and talking to him. And Thich Nhat Hanh said, and this man couldn't even be in the room with children for all those years after what he had caused. And Thich Nhat Hanh says something to him like, yes, you took the lives of those children. But Thich Nhat Hanh said to him, and Thich Nhat Hanh said to him, there are also many children who are dying today. and you can help them. You can save them. I spoke of compost earlier. That which is rotten, that which has died, can become rich soil, can grow new food, new plant life. Most of us, fortunately, the harms that we call are of a much, much smaller scale, but they are harms. And we cause sufferings. We are sometimes, of course, victims of suffering. And we can turn toward the great sacred and turn toward the children of God within ourselves and turn toward that anointed one, our teacher, and turn toward the Buddha, our teacher, and turn toward Mother Earth, our teacher. And we can say, yes, suffering is real. I cannot stop all the suffering, and I have caused suffering. But can I today do something that adds to the healing? Can I call for the healing? Can I be open like those watchmen waiting for the sun, open to the possibilities for healing to arise? Peter wanted to avoid it all. It can't be. That's bull. In the world, there's suffering. There will be suffering. But can we in that, even when we are the causes of suffering, even when the suffering is so unjust that it's caused by us or someone else or something else, can we continue to move toward steadfast love and forgiveness and compassion and healing? Oh, great sacred, help us to always open our hearts toward non-suffering, towards hope, towards healing, towards beneficial change. And may we look to it knowing, knowing, like the watchman waiting for the rising sun, knowing that the sun will rise again, knowing that there will always be new worthy possibilities, new healing, new kindness, new caring, new love. Peace and amen and amen. Thank you for being with us today. Sharing blessings. I hope you can join us next week. We'll be prayerfully dancing with verses from chapter 9 and Psalm 130. And if you find value in this, please tell others. If you find that you want to share it with others, we appreciate that as well. If we don't see you on Easter Sunday, we do have an Easter Sunday service. I wish you all a happy Easter celebration of springtime resurrection.